The last story, it's probably one of the most bizarre disappearances we ever heard of. But before we get into it, I'm Andrea, this is Steph. If you are as passionate as we are about mysteries and unsolved cases, gently touch that subscribe button and like this video so you don't miss out other mysteries we have prepared. The first story is the real-life reason why you should not let a girl walk alone at night. Even though this case got an unbelievable amount of attention in the media, the man seen in the last images was strangely never identified. In 2010, Iwona Wieczorek was living in Sopot, Poland. She had just graduated high school, and at the same time she was going through a very bad breakup. Like many of us at 19, Iwona wanted to have fun, drink with her friends, and live her best life. Often she would go to different parties with her best friend Adria, where they would party until sunrise. On one such night, on July 16, 2010, Adria invited her to go to a club with 3 other guys. She only knew them for about a month, but they honestly seemed like good guys. They took a taxi and stopped at the summer house of one of the boys' grandparents, where they partied until around midnight, after which they headed back to town. They all wanted to go in a club located in Civitomek, which was a very popular spot inside a very trippy-looking building. The problem was that even if in Poland the drinking age is 18, this particular club allowed entry only for those aged 21 and above. However, Pavel, one of the guys, assured them not to worry because he knew one of the bouncers. And not only they would get in, they would also have the VIP section reserved. The group continued to party and have a good time until Iwona received a message from another friend saying that her ex-boyfriend was in another club partying with 2 girls. Despite trying to move on, there was still some tension and some jealousy between them. In an intoxicated state, it was probably very hard for Iwona to control her emotions, and she got pretty upset. She became irritable, starting arguments with her friends over minor things. I would like to mention that we only know these things from their statements, as when they were asked multiple times by the investigators what kind of minor things, they didn't give a straight answer. She tried to leave a few times, but the group stopped her, especially Pavel, who actually liked her. But Iwona was going through a bad breakup, she was not ready for someone new, plus she didn't like Pavel that much. Eventually she tried to leave again, but Pavel grabbed her hand, and she warned him. I quote, "If you don't let go of my hand, I will start screaming." So Pavel let go of her hand, and they all left her leave, thinking she just needed some fresh air, she will calm down and she will come back shortly. In that moment, Iwona, without money for a taxi or a train, and the phone that was almost out of battery, decided she would rather walk 4 miles on foot than go back into the club. So that's what she did. She was caught on CCTV from the clubs nearby as she was making her way home. A few minutes later, her friends said that they began to worry and went out to search for her and tried to contact her, but Iwona didn't answer their calls. Eventually, she did answer and told them where she was, but for some unknown reason, they didn't actually go to pick her up. Perhaps they had another conflict, because we know she told Adria that she wasn't a good friend for letting her leave alone, and she should have came with her from the beginning. While walking alone on the street, she was worried what her parents might think if they see her in this state. So she called Adria back and asked her if she could sleep at her place. They lived relatively close to each other in the same neighborhood. Adria told her that she just got home herself, and she will leave a key hidden on the balcony. As she lived at the ground floor, Iwona could just grab the key, get in, and sleep at her place. But when Adria woke up, Iwona was not there, and the key was in the exact same place on the balcony. Iwona's mother was already alarmed because another friend had called the family and asked if Iwona had woken up and if she was ready for the volleyball practice. That seemed very strange to her father, because Iwona wouldn't have scheduled something like this so early in the morning after a night of partying. In a weird twist of events, the friend who called was actually instructed by Pavel to ask a made-up question. According to his declaration, he was just worried and was feeling guilty for letting her leave alone, and just wanted to see if she arrived safely. But in that moment, her mother, knowing that she's supposed to be at Adria's house, dismissed any feeling of worry and told them that she was there and she was probably still sleeping. However, in the afternoon when Adria woke up, she went to Iwona's house and told them that the last time they spoke, she was supposed to come there, but she never arrived. She didn't sleep at her place, and they split during the night, and the last time they saw her was at 2 a.m. Of course, Iwona's mother went immediately to the police, but the search didn't start right away. Because she was considered an adult, they thought she might have ran away willingly or slept somewhere else, and only a few days later the official search began. But unfortunately, Iwona was never found. Iwona was spotted one last time around 4 a.m., walking barefoot, only 30 minutes away from home, and a man walking behind her. These are the last images of Iwona before she vanished.
The second case we're gonna look at is that of Prisma Reyes, a young mother from Texas who was captured on CCTV entering a building, but she was never seen coming out. At age 26, she was considered by her family and friends a hard-working and responsible woman, juggling 2-3 jobs at the time, all driven by her desire to provide the best future for her son. At one point, she was enlisted in the National Guard. On April 17, 2019, she woke up in the early morning, left her son with the babysitter, and headed to work, just like any other day. However, during her lunch break, her behavior changed drastically, becoming quite bizarre and out of character. Prisma ended up meeting her ex-boyfriend at the bar, where they got into an argument, leading him to leave. But Prisma remained at the bar alone for another 3 hours, until the bartender refused to sell her more drinks. Shortly after, she called her babysitter, engaging in an unusually long conversation, lasting almost an hour, in contrast to their usual very brief calls. Initially, she was heading back to work, but something made her change her route. She turned around and started driving towards her ex-boyfriend's apartment. In an even stranger turn of events, she got into a road altercation with another driver, pulling out a gun, pointing it at the occupants of the other car. When the police were called, Prisma already left the scene. And by the time the police arrived, Prisma was already at the apartment complex where her ex-boyfriend lived, though he was presumably not home at that moment. Surveillance cameras captured her stopping the car at an intersection, blocking the oncoming traffic. She exited the vehicle and ran into the parking garage, where she stood in front of the elevator, talking on the phone with someone who later was excluded from the investigation. And she was captured for the last time by CCTV crossing the garage in a hurry. What is terrifying, it's not only that this is the last time she was seen, but also the strange fact that there is no footage of her leaving the complex. It seems as if she just vanished in the thin air, and though there were a couple of exits not covered by CCTV, it will be unlikely that she wouldn't return to her car. These are the last known images of the young Texan mom.
And finally, one of the strangest and most well-known disappearances ever to be caught on CCTV. The story of Lars Mittank. On June 30th, 2014, Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old engineer, left northern Germany for a vacation on the Golden Sands in Bulgaria with 4 other friends. Throughout the vacation, they spent time at the beach, they went to clubs, and they generally had a great time, until the final days of the trip when things took a dark turn. On July 6th, they went to a bar to watch a football match. Lars, being a passionate football fan, engaged in a heated argument with another group in the bar supporting his opposing team. The disagreement escalated quickly, but it didn't turn violent. Lars' friends managed to pull him away from the heated conversation, and they left the bar. His friends decided to grab some McDonald's, but Lars declined, saying he wasn't hungry but he will wait around. But when his friends returned, Lars was nowhere to be found. They waited outside for a while, but eventually they thought he might have went back to the hotel. However, when they arrived, he was not there, and they eventually assumed he would just show up later, knowing he was perfectly capable to take care of himself. And the next morning, Lars did return, but with a bizarre story that a group of men dressed in black attacked him. They were possibly Bulgarians or Russians. He couldn't tell exactly, but he was convinced that they were sent by the group of people who argued with at the bar, who allegedly told him that it's very easy in Bulgaria to hire for somebody to get beaten up. His friends were shocked, but they did have some valid questions. Why did he leave the McDonald's? Why he didn't ask for help? And where was he for so many hours? Despite the confusion, they moved past it, thinking he had a strange night, but he was safe, and they were leaving the same day, so it didn't really matter. But Lars mentioned that he was hit in the ear, and he was in significant pain, and everybody convinced him to go see a doctor before he flies. At the hospital, the doctor informed him that his eardrum was perforated and advised him not to fly immediately due to the pressure changes that come with the altitude. It can worsen his condition. The doctor just prescribed the antibiotic cefuroxima 500 and sent him on his way. Lars returned to the hotel telling his friends that he needed a few more days to recover, and they immediately offered to stay with him and cancel their flights. But Lars insisted that they should go back home. They all had jobs and families to take care of. So they left, and Lars spent a few more days at Hotel Color, where things took a turn for the worst. In the middle of the night, Lars called his mother, instructing her to close all his bank accounts and his credit cards, saying he was being watched, after which he abruptly hanged up. His mother was extremely confused, to say the least. She didn't know what was happening. Again at 3 a.m., Lars made another call to his mother, this time whispering with a very frightened tone. His mother, Sandra Mittank, said she could feel the fear in his voice, and she truly believed that something is seriously wrong. After this call, Lars was seen pacing back and forth in the hotel corridors, getting startled and hiding in the elevator, and finally leaving the hotel for about an hour. We don't know where he went, but when he returned, he sent more messages to his mother about the antibiotic he was prescribed. But not only it's a very common antibiotic, there was no actual evidence that he had even purchased or taken the prescribed medication. And finally, at 6 a.m., Lars arrived at the airport, where he spoke on the phone with his mother to give him the flight details, and she suggested he visit the airport's medical office for another checkup before flying, which he did. He grabbed his baggage and headed to the medical office. The doctor said he did notice that he seemed agitated, but he didn't tell him anything, so he didn't know what was going on. The doctor examined his ear, gave him the all clear. He said that he could fly and the eardrum looks fine. And at this point, a man opens the door to the office. It's unclear if he was a complete stranger or he was an airport employee, because the doctor actually changed his story a few times. What is certain is that when this man opened the door, Lars completely freaked out. He dropped his baggage and started shouting, I quote, "I don't want to die here." He ran out of the office, exited the airport, jumped over a barbed wire fence, and headed towards a small forest, where he disappeared, and he was never seen again. These are the last images with Lars before he disappeared. These are all relatively recent events, and they are ongoing investigations. We don't mean any disrespect towards the family, who are truly suffering and deserve at least some answers. And we truly hope that Prisma, Iwona, and Lars will be reunited with their loved ones.
I'm sure someone knows something.
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of hope that soon these cases will be concluded. Until then, they will remain unsolved.